Hello, everyone. Let's see who Linda is in the house. Linda.
Linda.
Good afternoon to you, sweetie pie. Got your email, and I emailed you back. I hope you got it. She had to put her little dog down, and so she put it down on yesterday. So she's dealing with that. But I love you so much, Miss Linda, and I know you're gonna be fine. Uh, so far, Linda's the only one here, so that's okay with me. We were again talking about change, and I thought about you remember the scripture, Norman, uh, where it says, "I am the Lord, and I change not."
Mm-hmm.
So, if the Lord if the Lord doesn't change, then that means the realm of spirit. I don't want to say it like that. Let me see if I say it a different way. There is a changeless dimension.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it like that. A changeless dimension, a permanent, a, a state of permanence, which is completely foreign to us in this realm.
Mm-hmm.
But when we when we go to that place, and I want to say go to that place because that implies that we have to move or change or uh, move in this distance. So I don't want to say that, but when we're fully recognizing and realizing that we are only awareness, that is the only time we experience the dimension of permanence.
Mm-hmm.
And because if you think about this dimension that we're in, body mind dimension, I'll call it that, this physical dimension, everything changes. Our bodies change from one day to the next. Our minds change from 1 second to the next. Um, Feelings up and down. Everything changes. Nothing is the same in this dimension from one minute second to the next. In fact, the person that you were a moment ago is no longer the person that you are now. So it's like there is a permanent being here that is not body, not mind, not thoughts, not feelings. And it is the only place where there is no suffering. But in order for me to experience it, and there's no me to experience it, but in order for there to be an experience of that, I must stay in right now, this very moment. If I think of the past or if I think of the future, I have to use my imagination to do either one.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's a spiritual experience that uh, I really cherish, and it's very special to me. Gave me so much insight and revelation and freedom. I can't even rely on that because it will also go. It'll
Mm-hmm.
come and then it'll go. The experience of it, that is. And so there's nothing really graspable in this realm that is permanent.
Exactly.
So
That-
when finding that place that finding that me that is changeless,
Mm-hmm.
finding um, that experience of not trying to change. For instance, I'll give you an example. So there's a place between separation and union. That changeless place is not Trying not to be separate is not trying to be in union. It's not trying at all because it already is whatever is
Mhm.
being sought for. That make any sense?
It makes a whole lot of sense, and I'm smiling because that is the premise of this new, like I said, series that I started concerning becoming world changers. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's because of all the things that's happening and all the things that we have been discussing. And it's funny because I ran into one of the elders of my church here a couple of days ago, and it was funny that he made this statement to me that he said when it's hard for him to deal with change. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And I had shared with him that's funny because that's common when it comes to human nature.
Yes.
We don't really embrace change. When change occur, we become very uncomfortable. All
Yes.
right. So
Yes.
like I told him, that's human. That's human. That's one of the fears that men have is the fear of the unknown because they don't know what's going to happen, what's going to be the changes that's going to occur in their lives and what's going to be the result of it. And so we find ourselves in a difficult season where it's not just minor changes or it's just not one or two. It's a lot of things that's happening all at one time. And so when I woke up on Sunday morning, this thought occurred to me. What side of the spectrum of change I'm going to decide to be on? Am I going to be in a reactive posture or am I going to become proactive? And so what happens to many people when change occur, we're always at that place of reacting to change. All right. So in essence, we're waiting for something to happen in order to make adjustments in our lives. Where in all honesty, if we operate and function from that place of who we really are, it doesn't wait. It creates. And so I'm understanding even the more from that place, we need to become more proactive where we are making certain things happen. All right. And so in assessing that, I have this question. I have this question. On this side, in this realm, in this dimension, what will we say is initiating the change?
Hmm.
What source is this change coming from? Is it man in his human form, or is it man in his divine state?
I, I would say yes and no. Yes is both.
Okay.
But I may, I could be wrong. Based on your question, I'm not sure. But when we think of change, a lot of times we think of uh, circumstances changing. But I realize inside myself, like you said, what am I? How am I going to be proactive or am I going to be reactive? That means that inside myself, there's something moving.
Mm-hmm.
When when circumstances changes, there's something moving, shifting, and it's not stable.
Mm-hmm.
And we sometimes get frustrated trying to find the stability. But the
Mm-hmm.
only way to find the stability is to back up and ask the question, what is it that's aware of these shifts taking place?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that's aware of that? And that is aware of it is not shifting.
Exactly. Exactly. It's constant. And so in thinking about that, um, the only constant in the world is change. And that's funny because I was getting ready to make that statement that change is inevitable. You cannot stop it from occurring. It's
Yes.
incapable of being avoided. But in the process of that, when I thought about all of that, um, again, people become very uncomfortable when certain things happen in their lives. All right. they seem to feel as though there's some things that's occurring in their lives that they have no control of.
Circumstances say, yeah,
Exactly.
circumstances.
But if that is the case, according to what we share in Christendom, again, our Father, He's the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. He's the author and finisher of our faith. If that be true, if that be true, and then we talk about union, we talk about sacred contracts. The truth of the matter is things that happen that supposedly catch us by surprise should not catch us by surprise.
And well, they're only a surprise to the mind.
Exactly.
Because the mind is trying hard to hold on to something that's not stable and make it stable, and it's not going to be. So we are creatures of we don't like you said, the change that is obviously going to continue in this world.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because our mind keeps trying to fix it to make it permanent, and there's no way that it can be.
Exactly.
It's futile.
Exactly. So I've discovered, I said this, that the mind is a bossy individual or a bossy force, because the mind is always trying to control and manipulate things to suit itself. All right. Because like you said, it don't like being powerless. It has to be in control. And so when I came to understand that there are certain things that in our lives that we wish we had control of, it's because we're not at that place of awakening awareness where, like you said, there's a place between that where it's not trying to do anything. It just observe with no reactions whatsoever.
Exactly. Because if it's observing with reaction, it's not the true witness.
Exactly.
It's simply the mind playing the part of an imposter as the witness. So exactly. What makes us really uncomfortable with change is uncertainty, because we don't know. The mind was given to us as physical beings, or we created it as a mechanism for us to navigate through this physical world. It is here to assess and interpret and conclude and evaluate. And so it's actually doing its job, trying to protect the physical body and the physical mind. So when it's doing that, it comes to a conclusion, and that conclusion usually is not correct. It's usually erroneous because it has a very limited scope, and it doesn't, because it's a very contracted state of awareness. But when you remain as awareness itself, that true witness that is seeing and noticing and witnessing all of the changes, but not being a part of it, but just noticing it, that one who is truly you is not concerned with certainty or uncertainty. So there's no fear or threat involved.
Exactly. And I'm experiencing that right now, and that's why I said it's so funny, because I've had this opportunity to reflect back on some statements, some messages, some teachings that I thought, not even just here recently, but years ago, that is becoming very relevant in this space. All right, what I'm dealing with now, and so I find myself in this, and I'm watching myself and observing myself, because there are moments where what I'm dealing with the ministry and the church like that, no reaction, don't have a care in the world. I mean, literally enjoying life, having fun, know what's going on, but really it's not weighing on me like the old Norman would be. The old Norman, I would have been freaking out. I would be walking around with a very depressed countenance on my face and so forth. So I'm finding it the only word I could use, weird, that I know what's going on, but I'm good. I'm literally good.
And you know what that is? You know what that is, right? That's
Right. Right.
peace that passes the understanding.
Yeah, exactly.
The mind can't figure out, okay, why am I okay? Why am I
Exactly.
okay in this situation?
And then it's then that can happen like today, and then tomorrow I'll wake up and I'll have this challenge of like, have I failed God? Have I what's
Mhm,
going on? I'm under attack, and
mhm,
now I'm like, okay, now yesterday everything was good,
mhm, mhm.
and now today is this whole different emotion, and
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah.
laughing because that's what I had to do. I had to laugh at myself and really speak to myself. Okay, which side are you going to be on?
Which one are
So,
you going to be? That's the
exactly.
actual question, is which one are you going to be? Are you going to be that one that has all those thoughts and believe that's who you are? Or are you going to be that one who is not moved? And you remember the scripture where Paul says, none of these things move me?
Exactly.
And so it's like he was in a dire situation, but he said, none of these things move me. So he had found that place that was changeless.
Hmm.
And when you wake up in the morning and it's all of a sudden it's different than it was yesterday, that's simply the mind kicking in, going back online. And when it does, challenge the thoughts, question the thoughts. That's where inquiry, and you talk about that a lot. Inquiry is very necessary. Are these thoughts, or what this mind is predicting right now, is it absolutely true? Is it
Hmm.
absolutely true that I am a failure? Is it absolutely true that I'm losing and I'm that all? So you ask those questions, and when you answer them honestly, most of the time the answer would be no. And then I don't have to believe these thoughts. But the thoughts can still run in the midst of the chaotic mind. The thoughts can still run, and you simply witness them and allow them to be without fighting them.
Exactly. And so there's something that I came up with, and this is going to be funny to a lot of people because I'm just out there. I I've discovered that we have created personally, each and every one of us, we have been involved, and there's been also external forces to the point that we have created our own AI, our own artificial intelligence, or our own artificial identity.
Yes. Yes.
Yep, by all of the downloads. So when you said
Yes.
about come back online, that is that artificial intelligence or that artificial identity that kicks back in.
It's the programming that's never gone.
Exactly.
It's the data that's always resident in the subconscious. It never leaves. It has every bit of data from the time you enter this physical body. It has all of that. It even has in it what you were before you entered this body.
Exactly. Exactly.
I like
Yes,
what Linda says. She says, I like to think of a mirror. It only reflects whatever is in front of it without ever affecting the mirror. Yeah,
exactly.
that's good. And
Exactly.
Connie says, hey, Connie, she says, it's knowing that God is in control and allowing your mind to rest in that very thing. And yes, and there's still the struggle at times. And that's why I said you allow the mind to do what it does, realizing that that's the mechanism. That's
Mhm.
just simply the mechanism, and it's going to do that. But when we believe the thoughts, that's where the suffering comes in.
Exactly.
And I use this analogy a lot of times. Let's just say you planned a picnic and you've got all your food and everything ready. You got your tablecloth, you got everything set up, and you got the perfect spot, and you set your things down and you get ready to sit on the blanket, and all of a sudden it starts to rain. When it starts to rain, is it the rain that's making you suffer? Or is it the thoughts you have about the rain that's making you suffer?
Exactly. 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 That's real good, Ma. That's real good.
Most of the time, it's the thoughts we have about it.
Exactly. And see, that's where when we talk about coming to the place of awakening or enlightenment,
Mhm.
that is the challenge, and I appreciate you guys, because if people will understand what you're sharing, concerning who we really are, they have to understand that y'all speaking from a place of that place where it is constant. There's no change or whatever. But yet on this side of it, we're still yet experiencing it, and the emotions are still yet real.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that is what we have to come to understand. If we can come to the place of awareness, like you just said about the rain, we need to ask ourselves the question: all these things that we are being confronted with, or all the things that we're going through, is it actually that's making me feel this way, or is it my perception? And I can use myself for an example.
Mhm.
If I buy into the fact of what we're dealing with right now with ministry, I can allow myself to feel like a failure. That is my perception. And
Mhm.
then also I realized that I base that perception off of other people's perceptions of what we have been consistently dealing with, not just now, but even as we were coming up, where it seemed like the rug was pulled up from under your feet, or something happened that you did not expect. Even in my
Mhm.
previous marriage, all that, because of what the paradigm of the world,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
mankind, they would consider that as failure.
yeah.
But when you had no control of that, you see what I'm saying? How can that be you? How can that be you failing? And
Yeah.
so, if we buy into what other people opinions and perceptions are, then yes, their emotion is created. It becomes toxic. And the
Mhm.
reason why I say become toxic, because if you feel like a failure, you're going to walk around depressed. You're going to walk around being fatigued, because that
Mhm.
thing is weighing heavily on your mind. You
Mhm.
become stressful, and so forth. And so again, if we could come to the place of understanding that, again, when certain things happen in your life that is unexpected, you had no clue, you didn't even have a glimpse of it, it is not you failing.
Right. And well, and you can't convince the mind. That's the one thing I do know. You can't convince the mind that it is not a failure. The only thing you can do is to ignore the mind. And when you ignore it, knowing and this is the thing, there's a point of grace where, like you said, one day it's just you're fine. You're just fine. And it's the time that you're seeing life through a different lens. uh, in other words, if I said this to you, most of you guys know because he shared it that he's moving from his present location. His church is moving. Let's just say you got tired of the building you were in, and you decided you wanted to upgrade, or you wanted to move to something better, or you decided you wanted to move into in an interim building before you got to that was better. Would your outlook be the same?
Exactly.
It would be. It would then be an adventure.
Exactly. And that's actually what I feel like.
Yes.
That is what I'm sensing. It is a venture, because on Sunday, something was impressed upon me that I never saw. And I think y'all are understand this, because we've been talking about the days of brick and mortar is
Hmm.
quickly coming to an end.
Yeah, we know
And so
that.
I understood something that I knew about years ago, and remembering, quote unquote, whatever my function is in what we call the body of Christ.
Hmm.
We've been, and Ma, you shared this with me from day one. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. The first time you guys came here, and we was in a storefront, and we had possibly going to another storefront, because I got a place to look at tomorrow. Um, I remember after y'all had ministered that night, and we went to eat at a restaurant called Applebee's, and you looked over to me. It was so funny. You looked over to me and you said, "Ah, so the pastor and the prophet is at war with one another inside of you." And it was like, you caught me by surprise. And so I've been making statements, and even if any of my people are watching, I hope they can understand this, because in all honesty, my function is not to be a pastor.
We know this.
All
Yeah.
right.
We know this.
So, but I realized for the work that was needed to be established in this area, I was the chosen one to
You
lay
had
the
to function.
foundation.
Yeah.
You see
You
what
had
I'm
to
saying?
function with that. Yes.
Exactly, but it's not my final destination. It's not the completeness of what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And so I woke up hearing two things. Number one, what side of the spectrum I'm going to be? Am I going to be on the side of reacting to change or being proactive, causing things to happen? And then the thing came to me: you need to shift from the pastoral model to the apostolic model.
Yes. And we're talking about models. There's a shepherd model, and then there's the what do they call it? The it's not the ranch model, but there's the shepherd model, and then there's the ranching style model that goes out and herds it up, but doesn't necessarily take care of it.
Exactly.
So anyway, we can get off on that for we can really get off on that. But let me just go back. We kind of straying for we getting on our church language now, but this is good. That's good. Linda says, I love what Muji says. Muji is a spiritual teacher and guru. He says the movie of a fire doesn't burn the screen. A movie of a waterfall doesn't make the screen wet.
Exactly.
And so, in using what Linda just said, if someone's watching TV and you go in and you ask them, "What are you watching?" They'll tell you what they're watching that's on the screen, but what they're actually watching is the screen.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so this movie of life is playing on our screen.
Mm-hmm.
On us as the screen, because nothing can appear on anything else but us. And so we, as the blank screen, that movie is playing, and we are looking at it, but we're looking at it from the vantage point of being in it
Exactly.
and not having enough distance between what's taking place and actually being the one that's aware of what's happening.
Exactly.
It's,
So
it's a
we
it's a
become the writer of the script. We
yeah.
become the director. We become
Yeah.
the actors and actresses in it. We become the executive or producer.
Yeah.
Everything that we the one actually put it all together from different roles.
And then when you remove the me, there is only one player, and we know who that is.
Exactly.
There is only one player that is orchestrating the entire thing. So there's no way possible that it could be not for your good. There's no way possible. It couldn't be for your good if there's only one player.
Exactly. And something you said earlier, because this is a thing that I wish we could have an open forum. There has been, how can I put it? That there has been a misrepresentation, I'll say this way, because a lot of the things that we mentioned, like for example, if I use the word apostle, like I said earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
That word does not mean what we have presented it to mean in the church, quote unquote. And that's the challenge I'm having with a lot of people right now, because a lot of the words that's being used, they must understand it predates it in its etymology.
Yeah.
It predates Jesus. It predates Christendom. It predates, and so we presented these words and turned it into a religious language, and that's why people are being so deceived. And there has been such a misrepresentation because we're not properly defining or using the terms that we have presented within these religious circles. And so there is a misconception, there is a misunderstanding, and so forth. And so that is one of the things, because even as we talk about discovering and walking in our true self, we have to go back to the origin. We have to go back to the beginning.
Yes.
And so in man's attempt to try to comprehend everything, we've messed up the language. We really have. And that's what's bringing the confusion.
Yes, intellect has messed up the entire thing. I wanted to put up what Buzz mentioned. Buzz says, I've never really felt that I fit into the paradigm, so I would tell myself that I failed. But I don't think that construct would make me happy. May not make for very interesting conversation, though. Right.
Yes, it does. It does.
Is, yes.
I've been where Buzz has.
Yes.
And I can say this with Buzz, and of course my mom and dad, they know me. I never felt like I fit in anywhere I went in Christian circle. I just don't think like them. I don't act like them. It's people, when they find out who I am, it baffles them. I don't fit in. And so I had to accept the fact that I am, and stop trying to fit into the paradigms of other people, because when you do that, you will not experience, not let alone happiness, but you will not experience joy.
Right. And it's a tricky place to be in, because of course in Buzz's case, he has a disability, and so his lifestyle is different. So there I'm sure there's some challenges, but it's tricky also, because sometimes you could just be in a state of defiance because of what other people expect of you. And I'm not saying that's what Buzz is doing, but sometimes that's what happens. We know that we've never fit in, but sometimes it can be, I'm defying everything everybody wants me to be. And that is still not truly who you are, because that is just a life of resistance. So it's important that we go back, like you said, to our origin. Our origin is what's very, very important. I'm gonna put up what Linda says, and I'm gonna be quiet. I think he has something to say. I love what you said, Tony. Basically, because of what we are, whatever happens to us is, or me, is purposeful. Yes. Yes, definitely has to be purposeful if there is only one player, and that one player we know is God, who is dispersed as all of us, and in that disbursement is actually navigating and orchestrating this entire life that we're experiencing. So it cannot be that anything that's happening to me is against me. It has to be for my good. Has to be for my good.
Yep.
You want to jump in?
Who is doing the change?
Who is doing the change? Yes.
So we're going back to that first question, okay?
Change is one side of the road that keeps awareness available to see. Change, sun up, sun down, something starting, something finishing. But it is a purposeful God of the finite world for essence to continually see itself from the opposite change in order to have fun
Mhm.
with himself,
Mhm.
looking at it, watching human forms get trapped
Mhm.
in looking like they are divided.
Mhm. And it's, yeah, having the appearance of.
It does not bring about a threat until one slips out of joint with his true identity and then slip back in joint and look at change,
Mhm.
that it is not a part of essence, never changing. Okay. I'm going to say it again: change, process, change, appearances change, taking place.
Making things different.
Change is a school,
Mhm.
it's a master of the illusion. But where does God come in at is presence. Okay. The presence of us as infinite, eternal beings causes the change by default, so that we can, so we as capital G can have something to do, such as experiencing what it's like to fall or to get up, to stop and to go, and never lose an ounce of its potency of beingness. I'm trying to put words together to.
You just said a lot.
I know.
That was the longest sentence I think I ever heard.
Yeah. See, it's hard to talk about change when you find out that there is a unchanging self, or a capital S.
Mhm.
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 Okay,
Mhm.
I'm gonna find out what change is, because the statement has been asked by God and it's gonna be answered by God. If
Mhm.
the mind asks a question, only the mind will answer it back.
Exactly.
Exactly.
If spirit
Exactly.
asks the question, the spirit will give back the answer from itself.
And for myself, if I speak just just for what I experience as a being, what happens to me is my I find myself trying to experience what I am as awareness. And that's where I get tripped up, because I can only be awareness. I can't find myself as an experience of that. And it trying to keep everything smooth and clear and the to be disturbed by the back and the forth, the flipping and the flopping, which is pretty much gonna happen until there is no there the mind is absolutely convinced that I know who I am. And
Exactly.
that, yeah.
Exactly. So now my mind is running here. Now, going back to Genesis, we were created in his image and in his likeness. Well, John made a statement when he said God is love, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he said, how can we say we love God who we never seen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how can we determine what the image of God is if we never seen God?
To
So
be yeah.
we create in his image and in his likeness, but no one has never seen God.
And you remember that there in the Old Testament there were, and forgive us, you guys, for using biblical language and Christian language, but this is the way we process things. There was in the Old Testament, he said not to make an idol or an image.
A graven image.
So,
Yes.
to be honest with you, God is imageless.
That's what I wanted you to say. Exactly.
So our mind keeps trying to put a face and a form on God, but God is in an unmanifest state until it gets to this, and then it's manifest.
Exactly. And so we have spent all this time in our beliefs, in our faith, and whatever we've been exposed to. We're trying really to identify. We're making an attempt trying to identify something that is unidentifiable.
Yes, and that's the mind trying to do that, because the egoic mind is trying to find a way home without dissolving.
Exactly.
But it must dissolve in order to get home.
So the truth of the matter is, we are unidentifiable as well.
Yes.
So we spend all of our times identifying one another by the flesh, when biblical language again says we are to know no man by the flesh.
Exactly. So yes, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And Buzz says this, and Buzz is so right. God is not a concept. But exactly. But when you think of God, when the mind thinks of God, if somebody asks you or says the word God, there is something conjured in your mind. And that is conjured is a concept.
Exactly.
It is not what God is.
Exactly.
So we have missed God because God is not appearing as our minds expect it to appear. Like on this paper that I printed out for my husband. He is the apparent without appearing, and the hidden without hiddenness. He is not in anything, and no thing is in him, whether entering into him or coming out of him. And that can only be because he is everything. Mm-hmm. No one sees him except himself. No one knows him except himself. He knows himself through himself, and he sees himself by means of himself. No one but he sees him. His veil is his oneness, since nothing veils him other than him. His own being veils him. His being is concealed by his oneness without any condition. No one other than he sees him. No sent prophet, no perfect saint, no angel brought close knows him. His prophet is he, his messenger is he, his message is he, and his word is he. He sent himself from himself, through himself, to himself. There is no intermediary or means other than him. There is no difference between the sender, that which is sent, and the one to whom it is sent. Whoever knows their self knows their Lord. He's the only player there is.
That's good.
The only player.
So we are suffering unnecessarily. Well, one side is necessary, the other one is unnecessary. So I want to talk from the aspect of unnecessary. We are suffering unnecessarily because we are fighting so hard to keep up with the portrayal of an image.
Yes, that's right. And because God is imageless, there's no. We're working against ourselves.
Mom, don't make me do a somersault.
But God is not, and like what Linda says, I was thinking yesterday, God is like air. You can't see it, only feel it, experience it, breathe it in. God is not an object. God is an experience.
Yep, exactly. And I want to define what Buzz had put up, because I see it's very revelatory. A construct is a mental image, idea, or theory, especially a complex one, formed from a number of simpler elements. That's the part that jumped out to me. Formed by a complex thing that simple elements are trying to form.
Yes, yes.
That's
So
good.
we are shapeless. God is shapeless. We are formless. God is formless. So we shouldn't take shape. When we take shape, that's when we suffer.
Exactly. Trying to
And,
fit in. Trying to fit in.
and
Exactly.
when and when I say take shape, I mean when we consider ourselves this body and mind, that's when we suffer. Not so much that I'm going to say I'm not human. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying to live from the awareness that you are. Be consciousness aware instead of being a mind, instead of being an intellect, instead of being just a physical apparatus. Be that is the source. And when you're that, it doesn't mean you're spooky spiritual. It doesn't mean you have an altered state of conscience. You're more natural and down to earth than anybody else when you're that, because God is not trying to be God. God is just God.
That's it. That's it. Wow. And I like the fact that you mentioned, because that's where a lot of people get the misunderstanding. We're not, again, no one is saying that you're not human,
Right.
but I always let people know this. I said, what I am presenting to you, because again, it's not my responsibility to shift your paradigm. That's a choice. All right. So you have to make that choice. All I could do is present. And so I always share people. I say, I just want you to know that it's more to you than meets the eye.
Much more, much more,
Yeah,
much more.
exactly. So I try to get them to embrace their unlimited self, their divine self.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's hard because when you have spent so much of your life in a conditional world, that is the part that becomes very challenging and difficult. And so, of course, you'll feel like you'll start saying to your own self that you're walking in heresy and so
Mhm.
forth and so on. But in all actuality, you're awakening to the fact.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Oh, that's good. That's good.
If change was not in this dimension, then the story of Jesus bringing Lazarus out of the tomb would never have happened.
Exactly.
Change is the demarcation to reveal an opposite. Change deserves to be in the presence of the mentor himself, and then find out that the mentor himself initiated this for the exquisite purpose of revealing the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You go to a stoplight, it changes 3 times. What color really is in the stoplight? We never thought about that. Is it red, yellow, and green? But it's constantly changing in order to give direction.
Yes, yes.
Change is the direction of the walk of the spirit. When I say the walk of the spirit, the walk of seeing and experiencing the non-changing identity. Change operate in toward the non-changing self, so that the non-changing self can constantly see itself
Mm-hmm.
through an opposite. Judas was put there by change so that change could see what it would be like to see itself as being none involved, and yet accepting the fact that Jesus called change his friend. Change is something that seems like to me, seems like what we're working up to. Change is got something to do with infinite eternal essence for the exquisite purpose of, like a scale weighing itself or an axe cutting itself. It has to have a knife that can't cut itself, so it sees its opposite change. A change gonna come. Otis Redding, and I know, whoa,
That's Sam
that
Cooke.
that's Sam Cooke. I'm sorry, not Otis Redding. Sam Cooke. I know that a change gonna come. Oh yes, it will. I was born by the river.
In a little tent.
In a little tent. So now, without birth, without change, we couldn't see. Change is the okay. Here it is. Change is the nocturnal vision of an opposite to reveal who is really the essence of the universe. It's a law. It's a change. I'm almost to the point to say that change was put into everything. Okay, here it comes. I got it. Okay. Presence of God, the presence of us, is creating this.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Exactly.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
That's it.
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Change is the creation of something made by us to kind of like how many inches in a foot.
Well, you know,
And every time you move up the scale, you got to change from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
and I want to address what Buzz says, and I agree with Buzz. I'm interested in the idea that we can be still while moving, living in an objective world, to live like we are now peacefully. I think it is possible. I know it's possible. Where I take issue with it is with myself, not with anything you said, but with myself, is that I have all of these mental references of things I have learned and accumulated that we call truth. But then in some cases, in a lot of cases, it is still not recognition. It's just a mental reference. And I have not a desire, but a longing to get past just mentally referencing all of the things I've learned. And to actually enter into that recognition. That recognition is where you actually experience the peace. Because I can't just take everything I've learned that we call truth and try to make it work.
Exactly.
You can't make it work. The mind cannot make it work. And I realize there are a lot of times, percentage-wise, that I'm living from the mind. And I've been very, very honest. I don't know. There are people who are living not from their minds. And God knows they are rare. They are very, very rare. And so most of us keep waiting for this one experience that's going to put me over there. And I realize now that it's not for me. It's not coming that way. I am having to really question everything my mind is saying. I am really having to stay on my tiptoes about what's going through my mind, and am I believing it? I have to, because if I don't and I fall into the belief of what the mind is saying, I immediately lose my recognition.
Exactly. And see, in order to reach that place, it's like the onion. You have to get rid of all of these layers.
It's
like
a peeling off. Yes.
It's so much that we have been exposed to all these layers after all the years of being conditioned and so forth. And I discovered in research, and I saw a documentary the other day, and I can't remember the place, but the individuals who had, because you mentioned there are those that do function and operate in that place. And most of those individuals, like the Buddhist monk and others, they separate themselves totally from the conditioned world.
Mhm.
Totally, they're not
Mhm.
exposed by
Mhm.
the media, exposed by all these different ideologies, whatever. And so meditation is pretty much their exercise. But in the documentary, um, in another documentary, I found out that there's actually and I'm trying to remember where it is. There's actually a region where an island where people where there is life, there is civilization, but they have not been exposed to the outside world ever.
Mhm.
Ever. You can't even come to see them or whatever. And so they're still yet will be considered prehistoric people.
Mhm.
They have not been exposed by any of that. And so in what you were sharing, it caused me to think about that our challenge is again going through all the layers of what we have accumulated, all the different
The
ideologies,
conditionings, yes.
and I
Mhm.
thought about the time when I was walking around in the church and I heard the thought, I need you to forget everything that you was taught.
Yes, and that's the beginning, and it takes great courage to drop your beliefs. That is the hardest thing, especially for those of us who have been told that you live by your faith and your
Faith.
belief. And so to drop that in order to find the truth is really, really difficult. But I do know this, that if and see, I could sit here and I could pretend that I have arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are a lot of teachers out there who are pretending that they have arrived, but they still having meltdowns. And I know what a meltdown is like,
Mm-hmm.
an emotional meltdown or a mental breakdown. They're having that. And yet they're teaching the truth. But it's truth, but it's not true.
Exactly.
It's truth,
Um,
but it's not true.
I
And
forgot to
so
truth.
we have dared to come online and be spiritual teachers, teaching the truth, but allowing our own humanity to show in those areas where we're still, just like you, finding a place of recognition beyond our mental references. And that's not an easy thing to do because it's not popular.
Exactly.
Because everybody wants to hear those that have arrived. But that is not reality. That's
I'm
not
glad,
reality.
and that's so. I'm glad you said that because that is the truth. That none of us, no presenter, no quote unquote guru, no spiritual leader, none of us have arrived. All we can do is share and present our own experiences.
It's
That's it.
about transparency. It's about transparency, being absolutely transparent. Buzz says this, I know what you're saying because we're throwing around concepts again. Mind cannot understand truth. Truth is what is without our thoughts and perceptions about what is. Yes,
Good,
definitely.
good,
Yes,
bud.
that's very good. Very
Yeah.
good. Linda says, what I have learned today, I am only God because of what I am. Whatever happens in my life is purposeful, good, no matter appearances. Thank you. Needed that. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. Buzz says, I still suffer a lot, but it is lessened. That's enough for me.
Mhm.
So
Good.
this living in an atmosphere of change is all about accepting the different shifts that are coming without resistance.
It's funny. I just had this imagery in my mind because I tell people, excuse me, to embrace the change. All
Mhm.
right. But now another thought came to me. We have to be able to embrace it without a reaction. So that's almost like me grabbing this cup and it's hot. It's been on the stove, but can I hold on to it and not react to it?
And let's convert what you just said and make it a little even less burdensome. So we're not going to try not to react. We're going to allow the reaction. We're going to sit back and watch how the mind reacts. We're going to sit back and watch how our emotions react. And we're going to sit back and watch from a place of pure acceptance.
Mhm.
And at that point, let those things run until they fizzle out.
Exactly. That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Let them run until they see. We're already burdened with conditions. So as the pure self, or as God would not burden you even more with another condition. So having to try not to react is another burden. So it's all about lightening the burden. Come
Right.
unto me, all you that are heavy. And, yes, and I will give you what? Rest.
Rest.
And that's the only thing Jesus promised to give you, was rest. He didn't promise to give you riches. He didn't promise to give you healing. He didn't promise to give you miracles. He didn't promise to give you a perfect mate. He didn't promise to give you anything but rest.
Exactly. Exactly. That's good. That is good.
Without change, we would never lose the body.
That's true.
So change. I hear the song.
It's necessary, isn't it?
It's necessary. It said, a change gonna come.
Yeah, you just said that a minute ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've been sitting on the dock of the bay. Wasting time.
You need to have one of your guitars on you with you right now.
I would have. My left ear ain't hearing nothing. That was change in my ear that caused me to go in another direction. Change is a directional sign of moving on into something else, but never losing an ounce of your unchanging self. See, the changing self and the unchanging self are friends, because they don't expect any more or less from each other.
Yeah, we were talking about, and that's true. We were talking about getting older, and for us, both of us in our 70s. I'm coming up on 74, and he's coming up on 75. And it isn't getting older that's the problem. It's the unexpected, or I shouldn't say unexpected. It's the things that can come up as a surprise in your physical body, and without notice. And then you find yourself in a limited situation physically that you didn't have to deal with before. That's the issue of getting older. Getting older in the body isn't really a bad thing. It's just the body begins to do like what we call a hoopty. You know what a hoopty is? An old car. You got an old car. You might say, I want to travel from here to California, but if you got a hoopty, it might make it to California, and it might not. And we're living in a hoopty.
You were here popping all the way there.
We're living in hoopties right now, so we don't know whether this hoopties. We keep it serviced, but we don't know how long it's gonna go.
When you get on a train, you're in the present moment. When you sit down in that seat and the train hadn't started yet, you are now in the present moment. But in order for you to get to that seat, you have to go through some changes. Now, sitting in that seat, when the train pull off, you are the present becoming the now. When you sit down, you're the now and the presence at that moment. When the train starts moving, the now is going to become the future, and the future is going to become the now, and after the now, it's going to become a past experience. You wanted to come here to experience change because you were the never changing one.
You're the unchanging.
You're the unchanging.
Changeless, yes.
So I know a change gonna come.
So we really should live in expectation of changes, shouldn't we?
Exactly.
Yes.
We should expect it. That's what I'm saying. We should never allow ourselves to get to a place where, like we're caught off guard. We're surprised. Like I always use the terminology being sucker punched. Like I didn't expect that to happen, or whatever. And the truth of the matter is, I mean, y'all talking about y'all 70s. Well, of course, y'all been where I'm at in my 50s, and there's some things that I'm like, and I work out. You see what I'm saying?
And this is that, and what happens when you experience this, it's like, okay, I'm not the Antoinette I was when I was 20. I'm not the Antoinette I was when I was 30. This person is changing. It's not stable. It's in constant change. And so knowing that you live in a body that is in a constant state of flux, you always have to realize something's going to be different. It may be different the next minute.
Exactly. Exactly.
Change is the path and a walk.
Sadie said, God looks good, y'all.
Mhm.
I like that. I like that.
I was in the grocery store yesterday, and
I really like that.
Yeah.
That was good, y'all.
You were in the store.
I was in the grocery store yesterday, and I looked up, and here come the manager and his assistant, and they knew me. But in order for them from the one end of that building to get to me, they had to make some changes. So the change that they rode on brought them to me, and my change to go to the store brought me to them.
Yeah.
But I looked at both of them, and I refused. I started to go into the fun. I did a little bit. I hadn't seen you in a while, and I told them the story and all that. But while I was standing there, I decided to switch, make a change, and talk to myself inside of them. And I looked at the manager and assistant. I said, I see you. And he was thinking I'm talking about him. I'm talking about essence.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at the white guy on the right, and I looked at him and I said, you're doing fine, aren't you? And essence. And then all of a sudden, I could tell my middle ear had tuned in to how change caused us or it to be in front of each other. God stands in front of himself through change. If there's no change, he will not be able to experience separation of himself to be seen. So change makes things show up.
Mm-hmm.
Change is what causes appearances to be what it is, but it is there for us to decide if change is going to be a distraction from our infinite self.
Exactly.
Like I said yesterday or the day before, is you get to the place where you get dissipated or frustrated with trying to explain something that has no words to it.
Mm-hmm.
Change does not have any words to it. Mm-hmm. It does not have any paragraphs. Futures. Wait a minute. Hold on. Futures. Pastor Norman, I see your mom, and I hear the word futures, and it was involved with something your mom is waiting on that has to do with some monies that have been found, like on a job or pensions or something, and it's been held back. And she decided to look into it to investigate quality amount that should have come to her. Something about your dad. I don't know what it is, but I feel that there's something coming up to her in futures. Is that insurance? Futures.
No, that's investment.
Investment. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's right. Your mom is going to face investments, something to invest or was invested into that she was supposed to get something from. And I don't know how this worked, but I feel that presence with her.
Okay.
And I see your mom mixing something together to make something happen for somebody that don't have a lot of money to pay her for her work, her skill, her business. I see her sitting at the desk or table in the kitchen looking over some papers. And she has to decide on whether she wants to continue on receiving funds under certain futures. I hear the word future again. Under certain things, but a change is coming. And I know, whoa, a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it is. It was too hard living. Yeah, I heard that. She's tired. She's had enough of it. And she's waiting for the change that's coming to her. So we can't argue with change, because if it was not necessary, we wouldn't be here.
It's very necessary. It's very necessary.
Okay.
Very necessary. Well, we have had an hour and 10 minutes, you guys. It's time just was speeding along today, and we had some good conversations here. Some more things that I wanted to talk to Pastor Norman about, the model that you're talking about, the change in the church model. And I can't remember the terms, because I studied church growth for years.
Yes.
And I can't remember the term, but there is a rancher style versus a shepherd style.
Exactly. I discovered that in the shepherd style, or what we call a pastoral model, the focus is more on individuals being compassionate and their personal development, whereas the other model is more focused on the mission. So when you talk about the ranch, the gathering and the herding and so forth. Yeah.
You made me think of something. There's a brand of shoes. You brought me those shoes a couple of years ago, and I can't remember the name of the company, but it's the business itself. And there are a lot of businesses coming up like this now. Businesses that if you buy something of their product, they do something for someone else.
Oh, yeah.
In this case, it was shoes. That if you bought a pair of shoes from them, they gave a pair of shoes to someone who needed them. And there's companies now that are rising up who are actually doing this. And so what you're saying is they're compassion based. They're still entrepreneurial, but they're compassion based.
Exactly.
It's about helping other people. And so this is what you're saying. The whole model of your ministry is changing. It's in transition. It's actually developing rather than just changing. It's developing. It was like the embryo, and now it's developing.
Exactly.
It's almost like change is a gift. That if it is handled correctly, it becomes a tremendous asset.
And if it's not resisted and afraid and made to look as a threat, then it is beneficial.
I've always wanted to make tugboats out of big giant wood tugboats. And in order to keep the wood of the tugboat that I want to make from sinking, I'd have to make some changes in the structure of the wood, such as soaking it in water until it becomes soft and
you can
bend it. Also, I found out that in order for me to make something float, I'm going to have to seal the wood so that the opposite water will not get into the wood to make it sink.
You made me think of something. So to really go through change without a lot of reactions, the flexibility has to be developed in our souls. Yes, our soul has to become more flexible to life's changes, to the potential of what could be. Yeah.
Do you know when you said that, I thought about the new wine and old wine skins.
Oh yeah.
It's too rigid, unflexible. So that's good. I like that.
When you look online and see a tugboat, they have some tugboats that military policemen use, that if it turn over, it's made to keep turning over until it finally come back on top. The big tugboats, when you look at them, they look like the back end of it is very narrow, thin, and it looked like it wouldn't take a whole but a little bit of water for it to sink. But when you pull one on dry dock change, you'll see that there's more underneath that tugboat than what's on top. That's in order. And then they have the engine in the tugboat is very universal. It swivels back. Swivel, is that word you call it? Swivel back and forth on each one of them in order to make it go sideways, back, forward, halfway. A tugboat can be.
So you just gave me another analogy. You can to be willing to change directions on a dime.
Yeah.
Be willing to change directions at any moment.
That's right. That's a gift. Now you're not going to see the advantage of change until you go deeper in awareness or deeper in inquisitioning. Who is this me that is watching the change? And then allow that question to be answered by that is the change. How much change do you have today? Or make change. Let me give you another $1 so I can get that 2 cents out of it. Something got to change. It is an adverse.
Well, and you just gave me another analogy.
Why you use my analogy? Use yours.
So it's not change. Change is not beneficial until we see it as an exchange.
I don't want no X on my change. I want money. I want it to come back with no X.
Be quiet for a moment.
I am.
Change is not beneficial until it's an exchange.
You change for the benefit. You made a good change.
You don't even get it. You don't get it, do you?
I'm gonna get it.
You don't get
I got it.
You don't get it. Look, Linda says we're a musical. The Sawyers, the musical.
We changed.
Yeah, right.
I told somebody when I was young.
If we can remember the words.
Hey, when I was young, I was so pretty. I
got to tell Linda this. While she's on here with us. Today, Linda, I went outside and I started to trim my azalea bush. And baby girl was out there with me. And all of a sudden, I looked down. I was trimming the bottom of it to get limbs off the ground. And I looked down, and baby girl was down there biting on a limb, trying to break it off. She was trying to help me. She was actually trying to help me. It was so funny. And I knew Linda would appreciate that. But look, guys, we have been here for now an hour and 17 minutes. So we really talked a lot today.
We will have to say thank you for sending us the extra change.
You still on the change.
That will.
Hey, I'm already going through some revelation right now.
You are.
With the word exchange. I divided the word in the prefix. X means out of.
Yes.
So change is not beneficial until something comes out of.
That's right.
The change. Something has to be produced.
It's almost like change being X-rayed.
And in all honesty, God didn't change us. We use this word a lot in our church circles, that God changed me. I know I've been changed, but there was not a change that took place. There was an exchange that took place.
Okay.
Anywho.
Change.
Yes, Linda, baby girl. She's a mess.
Change.
I'm going to write a poem about Ida Claire, so I'll send it to you when I finish it. I started it this morning. This is for Linda. I started it this morning. I'm going to finish it for you, and I'll send it to you when I've gotten it finished. Ida Claire, that's the name of her dog. I declare.
Oh, I thought you were talking about I declare. Yeah,
I declare.
I declare.
No, Ida.
Them
declare.
old folks, you say, I declare, I hope my die. If it ain't the truth, that's what they say. Hope my die.
I think that's a great name. I declare.
I declare.
Anyway, we love you guys, and we're gonna take off here. We'll see you again on Sunday at 10. Pastor Norman will be back with Bowl at 11. And we'll be live and in color. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you guys all for the Cash App and the gifts and everything, nuts and fruits and candy, and that's really right down the middle of the road. That's making a lot of change, you know. That.
Keep buzzing, brother.
That's making a lot of change.
Keep buzzing, Buzz, and we thank you, Sadie, and thank you, Nancy, thank you, Connie, thank you, Diane. Who else? Dee Dee. Hey, Dee Dee. Hi, Dee Dee's there.
George and Dee Dee. All right.
Yeah. So anyway, we enjoy having you guys with us, and we love you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.